Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all here. Everybody's getting logged in, so we're going to give it a second. We're so excited to have Maggie Gomez with us today. She is amazing. So if you haven't had a chance to look at her YouTube channel yet, I highly, highly recommend. I'm just going to get a few more people admitted before we get started. We are recording. Oh, go ahead.
I have a bit of a cough, so I'll be like, I might mute myself from time to time, just throwing that out there.
No, we are recording. So if anybody wants to turn your camera off, feel free, but also feel free to have it on and be engaged. As I've said, Maggie is a wealth of information. I'm certain you're going to have a lot of questions for her, but she is going to share her screen and give us some information. So it won't be necessarily a slide presentation, which I think will make for better engagement. But in honor of your punctuality and being here, I'm going to go ahead and get us started and introduce Maggie. So I just want to share with you all that I have been just really overwhelmingly impressed with Maggie and love the work that she does, and was really excited that she was willing to come and join us. She's a nationally recognized financial wellness expert, and I believe she connects so well with the Ursuline mission in that she has recognized. Oh, if you're not muted, if you could please mute yourselves, that'd be great. But that she really recognizes the issue of finances and financial wellness as being a social issue, and one where not everybody has access to resources. And she has worked really hard to make those resources available to all. So I think that's really fantastic. But I will be popping some links in the chat throughout the presentation, so you can connect to Maggie's webpage and to her YouTube channel. And with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maggie. So Maggie, thank you again so much.
Well, thank you so much, Gina, for having me. And thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to talk about this with you and just really help you gain control of this aspect of your life, like how to actually plan to retire one day. Because I know with retirement, it's one of those things that is almost like on everyone's someday list. You know, we someday want to plan for that, someday want to think about it, but we're busy with regular life. So it can be really easy to just kind of keep putting that on the back burner. And today I'm going to help you take a couple of steps to actually start the plan and start taking action. So hopefully after you leave this event, you'll have some tools that I love to use on a very regular basis that you could use really easily, and you'll understand them much more after our chat today. So just a little bit more about me, just so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. I've worked in the corporate space for years as a financial advisor. I've worked for the big brokerage firms like Morgan Stanley, Morgan Stanley, Schwab, and E-Trade. And while I was there, I just saw that you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, to get really quality attention from a financial professional. And being myself, growing up poor, I lived in poverty when I grew up on government assistance, and my mom came from India, and she just had a lot of struggles. She married an alcoholic who was my father. He passed away when I was 16, and I was the oldest of 4. So that left me feeling very responsible to try to figure out like how to make sure my mom was okay and take care of everything. And like with my mom from India, she didn't know anything about finances, especially the complex financial stuff we've got going on here in the States. And she would just say to me things like, oh, that's for rich people. And so growing up, I heard messages like that, and it kind of left that feeling of like, well, I want to be what I want that. Like, what is a rich person? How do you become rich? And that kind of started that desire for figuring the money thing out. At the same time, she always said, in America, everything is possible. You could do anything you want in America. So I got a lot of conflicting information growing up, but I leaned into that, and I really just tried to figure this finance thing out and learn from people who have gotten wealth, who are doing better than I was at that time financially. And working one-on-one with clients that had these huge portfolios really gave me that behind the scenes inside look for what people were doing. I was typically working with people already in retirement or transitioning into retirement. So it was people that had already accumulated a lot of money. And so I was always asking curious questions. How did you do this? And, just looking at their portfolios, and everyone was so different. There wasn't a real streamlined answer. But the one thing I did, or a couple things I did take away from that experience, was most of them got invested a long time ago and they just kept investing. So that was like, okay, how do we get started as soon as possible and do what we can to grow our accounts as much as possible? And I also saw that there's so many different ways to do it. Some people had a ton of stocks, some people had funds, some people had managed accounts. It was all over the place, but they had all figured out that they've accumulated some money and now could live on it. And that was a nice place to be from the outside looking in. And so I took that and just have really tried to understand how they did it, both from the savings aspect, the investing aspect, and the consistency over time. And I've learned a lot of tools along the way and everything. So after kind of being in that scene and realizing you had to be wealthy to be in that scene, I saw the huge, huge need for the people that didn't have that huge portfolio yet, that were maybe still starting out, that weren't there yet. And I decided I'm going to leave and start my own company. And that's where Money with Maggie was born. That was almost 4 years ago. And I started with my YouTube channel, creating tons of videos on finance and investing. And I offer one-on-one services. And now I have an investing course for beginners. And so I'm making it more accessible, making investing more accessible. I speak to a lot of communities and I love it. This is my third this week. So thank you all so much for having me. I do want to let you know that you could feel free to drop any questions in the chat the entire time. If I don't see them, Gina, just feel free to let me know, or anybody feel free to come off of mute and just speak up. I want this to be as informative as possible so you can really have some good takeaways and actually plan to retire someday. Let me see. So with all that being said, let me check the chat real quick. Okay, we don't have anything so far except my website is there, but feel free to drop anything there, like I said. Now, need to take a pause because that was a lot. So let's see, if we are planning to retire, there's a couple of aspects of it. One, we have to make sure you've got room in your budget to set money aside. So the number one thing, right? Make sure you've got your emergency fund saved up. You've got your high interest debt paid off. These are the foundational things to first really focus on and take care of, so that then you could flip that money into an investment account and then accelerate what you're able to do for retirement. Now, let me know if you have questions on debt payoff plans or how to go about it. But I really think you can have some debt as long as the interest rate isn't high. I know there's different information, different ideas in the financial space. I think carrying a home loan, even an auto loan, if the interest rates are low, and to me that's under 3 or 4%. If they're low, then you may as well invest your surplus instead of paying off these larger purchases, because you can typically get a higher return from your investments. That being said, if you're not comfortable with debt, then of course, take care of that. It's up to everyone's own personal preference with debt. But a lot of times it's really easy to spend all of our money. So if you feel like you don't really have a surplus or you're not sure what it is, this is the first step in kind of peeling it back and looking at your expenses. That might mean looking at your bank statements, your credit cards, all the places where money is going and are outflowing, and pull the numbers, pull the Excel sheet, like download the file, categorize everything and see where it's all going. A lot of people don't want to do this because they don't want to see where their money is going, because people tend to feel guilty for their spending. But what's done is done, and it's okay. I encourage you to just look at it, like what is happening. That way you can say, okay, I would like to have more money in retirement for later. So what can I carve out and trim back on that really won't make me feel like I'm sacrificing because I'm not really enjoying it that much anyways, and pull from those areas first and put it into a retirement plan. Now, let's get into the tool, the main tool that I'll show you. It's a retirement planning calculator. Some of you may have already run one of these. If you have one through your company retirement plan, that's great too. This is just one online that anyone can use. One moment. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So you can pull this up. It is, oh, actually, let me enter it in the chat so you have the link. And then also, so you could follow along with me if you want and enter your own numbers. Or you could just watch for now and then do your own later. All right, here we go. So this is just a retirement planning calculator from Bankrate. So let's take a look. So basically you want to come in here and just enter your starting point. So I'm just going to enter some generic numbers for now. Let's say you're 45. Well, I don't know what age to really use for this. Let's just say 45. Okay. Let's say 45 and you want to retire in 20 years, 45, 55, 60. That puts you at 65. I'm 38, by the way, for anyone wondering. I started looking at these numbers probably when I was 30, and I'll get more into that later, but let's say you have a household income of 50,000. Obviously enter your income here. Let's say you're saving 10%. And let's say you have $10,000. If you don't, that's okay. If you've got way more than that, that's great. Enter what you have. Let's say you get an income increase of 3%. That's just meaning, you know, a lot of employers will bump up your income incrementally every year. If you think you're going to get more or less, that's what you put here. And income required at retirement. So this is asking, how much do you think you're going to spend everything you're spending now? Do you think you're going to spend more? Do you think you're going to spend less? I like to plan for 100%, meaning you live off the same amount of money in retirement as you do now. I like to start there, and then we kind of adjust the numbers based on what we find. So let's see, if you're 65 when you retire, and here, this last one is years of retirement income. It's basically asking, when do you think you're going to pass away? No one knows this, of course. So you can just use your best guess. There are life expectancy tables that you can use. You could use your family history. So I know the average is somewhere in the 80s. So we're going to say 85 for this example. So that puts us 20 years of retirement income. So now you can see from this chart here, hopefully you guys can see this, but let me know if I need to, let me see if I can increase it a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better, but so this you could see retirement savings runs out at 68. That's not good, okay? But it's okay. It's the starting point. It's the first time we've entered our numbers. If you get this, then there's some work to do. So, oh, the other thing I forgot is there's this line that says investment returns, inflation, Social Security. There's a plus sign over here. If you click it, it'll give you some options for rate of return before, during, and after. So we need to make some changes here because this is saying that you're getting 7% and there's an expected inflation rate of 4%. I think it saved some of past numbers, but not all of them. But anyways, so the stock market has returned on average for the last 100 years, an average of 10%. So I like to use 10% when I'm in that like 20 years, 10 years from retirement planning phase. I like to use 10% and be invested primarily in the stock market. So you get the most opportunity for growth. Now, if you use 10%, I also like to have inflation here. Inflation is really high right now. I think the numbers that just came out were like 8%. So we're in a really weird spot as far as like, is this going to be the new normal? Is it going to calm down? I know the Fed is working on reducing the interest rate and all of that stuff. So I'm thinking it is temporary, but you can enter your numbers here. The historical rate is about 3%. But you could use a little more if you want to be more conservative. But I'm going to go with the historical rate and just hope things get back to normal, get lowered. But one thing on that is do this every year. Once you create this, do this every year, or if you have a change in your circumstances, so that it becomes more and more and more accurate the closer and closer you get to retirement. And then you could check if you're married. This does not include Social Security. When I first run the numbers, I like to leave that off and kind of think of Social Security as the bonus. But let's look at it right now. So we increased this rate of return during retirement. So when you do retire, you do want to adjust your portfolio to move from that state of growth and accumulation to more of a preservation and income state. But you don't have to get it so conservative because a lot of that money will not be used for, 10 years from now, 10 year, because if your retirement is a 20-year window, you're going to use some of it in the first few years, but you still have this other bucket that's not going to be touched for a while if you do things right and spread out your distributions, like the rate that you pull out your money. So you don't have to get too conservative, but we'll go a little bit more conservative than this. Because this factors in the real rate of return because we have inflation there. So 7,654, you're really getting about 4% in retirement. And then 987, you're getting about 7% because of inflation. Obviously, if inflation stays high, you're going to barely be like breaking even.
Maggie?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
I wanted to throw at you really quickly.
All right.
Jen is asking, how does married or not affect the speculative model or the numbers on retirement?
I don't think, because I don't think it affects it here. Let me click this little. Married couples have a higher maximum Social Security benefit than the single wage earner. Okay, so that's how it would. So let's close this and look. If you click married and click Social Security, it says savings runs out at 74. If you're unmarried, it says savings runs out at 72. So they give you a automated number that's higher for married couples than single couples, unfortunately. So click what you think here. So we can see that we're running out of money at age 69. So now this, and then if we include Social Security, 72, not too much better. So then you have to think, okay, well, there's only so much you could do. You can't really change what you get from the stock market. That's not in your control other than adjusting your allocation to stocks and bonds. But what you can control is the amount that you save, the amount that you earn somewhat, and the age at which you retire. So those are our three factors that we can control. And when you run these numbers to start out with, it can seem really defeating, but I want you to tune into this just equipping you with that knowledge, and know that knowledge is power to make change. Because if you hadn't run the numbers, you would just be with the situation that is at hand, right? Running the numbers just gives us that knowledge so that we could do something about it and make some change so that we can shape it into something that we're more satisfied with. So this could be motivation to ask for a raise, look for another job, to do what you can to increase your income. But it could also mean you save some more if you can. So let's just look at bumping it up 5%. So let's go to 15%. And now we run out at 76 instead of 74, right? So that buys us a couple more years. Oh no, instead of 72, because I left that married unchecked. So it moves us from 72 to 76 by saving 5% more. So instead of $10 from every 100, you're saving $15 from every 100. And, but it's still not enough, right? We want to have some comfort that our money is going to last us through retirement. So then you either say, okay, well, what does it look like to save 20%? Obviously, you could only go so high with this without sacrificing your comforts of life. You want to have a comfortable life now as well. You don't want to live the next 20 years really feeling deprived, but you would be surprised at the amount that you can reduce without noticing it, from what I've seen working one-on-one with people on trying to figure out their budgets, because money slips through the cracks, right? Our money and our attention is being pulled from every direction. So it's really easy for us to let money slip through the cracks unintentionally. So 20% gets us to 80, and then maybe you work till 68. So you just kind of see, okay, a couple more years and it's just changes the game, right? Now you don't run out of money. So when you get numbers like this, where you have, and maybe you're starting with more, maybe you make more, all of this is going to look so different for each individual. But if you get to a situation like this, balance at the end of retirement, $419,000. So what this means is you had $970,000 when you retired, and you were spending $95,000, which is 100% of your last year's income. They took that 50,000 and kind of increased it by a couple percentage a year, like we said on the chart. And this also includes 32,000 per year from Social Security. So some people want to have a lot of money left over after their lifetime that they can gift to their children or to different charities or something. So that's other tweaks that you make. But some people want to spend all their money, which I think is great too, because, you know, because that's what you've worked so hard for all your life. So this kind of gives this a little more of a summary. This plan, when you click view report, it keeps like popping around. So this one says your plan is on track. This assumes annual retirement expenses, like all the things that I just said. If it wasn't on track, like the first couple options that we saw, then it would actually give you some options here. So if let's change this back to 15 and see what that looked like. Okay, so this gets us to 84. So let's now look at the report. It'll give you options. Increase your contributions. So it kind of tells you what you could do. Increase your rate of return. I don't like to increase this unless, I mean, this is not too big of an increase, but sometimes it's like increase it to 17%. Well, you can't do that. reduce your required income. So that was the other thing that we didn't even look at on that chart, but like instead of spending 100% of what you were spending pre-retirement, you spend a little bit less, which that's what a lot of retirees end up doing, that end up living on Social Security exclusively. They just live on Social Security, and it could be less than they were making during their working years, but they figure it out. So that's the other part of this is if there's so many people, I don't know if the rate is like 50% or some, it's pretty high where a large portion of people are living on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. So even if you can't fund your entire retirement, you'll still add to Social Security and what you will be getting. So even if you give yourself an extra $1,000 per month versus what you would get on Social Security, you could see how it would be beneficial for you to save, even if you can't fully fund a cush retirement, so to say. Let me see, I see a question here. Shouldn't your expenses decrease in retirement? For example, no longer having a house payment? Exactly, it might for some people. Sometimes people move, buy a second home so that they can be snowbirds. Sometimes people travel a lot more than they did in retirement. It really varies from person to person how they decide to spend their retirement. That's why you could end up spending more, because maybe you just go to work and you don't do a lot of travel, but maybe in retirement, you travel to see grandkids or you like do the snowbird thing and your cost could be a lot more. So that varies a lot from household to household. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, but that portion kind of covers the actual logistics of planning retirement and thinking through the numbers, like, okay, how do I back myself into what I need to save to actually fund a decent retirement? And let me hide
Maggie, we actually do have a couple of questions that are popping up.
Okay.
One of the questions is, should your expenses decrease in retirement? For example, should you no longer have a house payment?
Oh, okay, I just answered that.
Oh, you did. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's
I'm
okay.
watching these pop up. I got a couple of questions that came in kind of privately,
Sure.
I think by accident. So another question is, if you are married, does it matter how long you're married for it to impact your retirement benefits?
That I'm not like a Social Security specialist, but I think you have to be married for 10 years to get the benefits of your ex. And that could have been like 10 years ago or something that you got divorced. I think you can still qualify for their benefits if you've been married for 10 years at least, but double check that with the Social Security Administration or socialsecurity.gov, because I'm not really too sure on how Social Security works.
Okay, I think the question is actually how long, like if you let's say get married in your 60s versus being married in your 20s, and you may not have the answer, which is totally okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you get married in your 60s versus your 20s, then what?
Does that impact your retirement benefits?
Oh, because like I'm guessing because this calculator said that people in retirement or people married get more. I'm not sure on that. Yep, I'm not sure at all how that works. I think when you're married, yeah, I don't know enough on that. So that's going to be for Social Security, a Social Security person.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah.
Hi, Maggie.
Yeah.
Hi. I was just at a seminar for Social Security,
Okay.
and they said you have to be married to your spouse at least 10 years for you to get the benefits for their Social Security. if that kind of helps.
Okay, so if you're 60, you wouldn't get their benefits until you're like, until you're
Married.
until 70 or something.
And married for 10 years, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that part is like the logistics, like I said, of getting started with a plan. And what I think is most important to do is revisit it every year, like I said, because like when I first did this, the numbers were like, you're never going to retire, but my income was a lot lower. And so that was motivational to say, okay, how do I get my income higher? And searched for jobs paying 6 figures, got the credentials, I got my certified financial planning designation, and just worked at a better firm. At Morgan Stanley, I was making like 45,000, and then going over to E-Trade, I made 6 figures. And it was doing the same work, working with the same type of people, asset wise, but they just had a different compensation structure. So it was really nice because I got to work a lot less. I didn't have to get my own clients. They had a book of clients. So you might be able to, especially now, use some of that power of the fact that there's so many employers wanting employees, use that as leverage to help you increase what you're able to earn where you're at right now if you love your job. And if you don't, it could be motivational to find another job because it's likely you'll get a bump in pay just for moving, even if you're doing something very similar to what you're doing now. So that's just a note on that, like increasing your income, because that's a big, easier way to save a lot of money. It's hard when you've got a really tight budget, but we know lifestyle can inflate just as much as income can inflate. So it's important to spend less than you're making, of course, at any state of pay that you're making. But now, after we think through those logistics, now let's talk a little bit about actually investing. I'll show you, because we looked at, when I was talking about that 10% rate of return, let me show you some historical charts just of the stock market, so you can have a good idea of what to expect as you're investing for retirement. And make sure you're getting your employer match if they have one, and doing all of the retirement stuff at work. Let me know if you have questions on like IRAs, Roth, traditional 401ks, any of that. If you've kind of been wondering about any of that stuff, feel free to drop it in the chat and I could help you out with that. Okay, I see a comment too that says, also, if you're divorced, you're entitled to your ex-spouse's benefits only if the benefits of your work is less than what the spouse's work would receive. Yeah, so that's really worth looking into as well. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so I'm just going to start out by looking at the S&P 500. This is a basket of 500 of America's largest companies, and it's the one that I was talking about that has had historical performance or historical returns of 10% on average for the last 100 years. So what this chart shows us is current performance, like what's going on today. These numbers right here, let me blow this up a little bit so we can see this chart better. So these numbers on the top is time frame. So this is 1 month, 6 months, year to date, 1 year, 5 years, and maximum. So this is from like when the fund, or when the index was put together through now. So what we can see obviously is there's a lot of ups and downs throughout time. And so when you're investing, especially as you get closer to retirement. That's why it's important to get a little more conservative when you're in retirement because of these ups and downs. If you're pulling money from your account and the market drops, then you could potentially have a large loss and be pulling money out that's down 40%. It was down 37% or so just when the pandemic happened, but that was like the briefest recovery ever. It recovered in 3 months. That just historically hasn't happened with such a large drop. The last large drop was in 2008 and 2009, where the stock market dropped about 40%, but this time it took several years to recover. So if you were sitting here in these couple of years leading up to retirement, let's pretend you happen to retire right before the drop, and then you enter retirement and you've still got this aggressive portfolio, the market's dropping, then it becomes very nerve-wracking because your account's for every $100,000 you have, it's now only $60,000. That's what these people were in the position of, depending on how they were allocated. But that's not a great place to be, which is why it's good to kind of dial down the risk as you get into retirement. But if you're in your phase right now where you're planning to retirement, you've got some time on your side, you can still benefit greatly from these big drops, because if you're putting money in every single paycheck and the market drops, then you get to recover from these drops much quicker every single time the market increases past where it dropped or past where you bought in. That's when you start to profit and you start to benefit. So if you get more aggressive with your investing right now, you start to put more money in and the market drops, it's okay. That's the main thing that you have to kind of get prepared for as you get more in tune with investing for retirement, because I know you work hard for your money. You don't want to see it drop. We all want to see it go up. But in reality, it's actually good if it goes down, because it means you're getting to buy in at cheaper price points, which means you get to have higher returns when the market does turn around. I see a chat here, so let me take a look. If you're self-employed, what are the retirement account options? I'm aware of the Roth and standard IRAs, or I'm only aware of those. So you have different options. You also have what's called a SEP, an individual 401k. Those are the three primary options, and they allow you to contribute up to the same amount that a 401k does. So those are definitely worth looking at if your income is to the point where you're able to max out your retirement accounts, and especially the IRA is only six or 7,000 depending on your age. And if you could do more than that, then definitely consider opening up a SEP, a simple. And then there's charts if you enter like SEP, simple, and individual 401k, depending if you have any employees, I think SEPs are the easiest ones. But you can still contribute that $19,500. And you could also contribute, I can't remember which one of them it is, but I think you could also contribute a portion of, you could contribute what your employer would contribute. So you're acting as the employer. So you're contributing as an employee and as an employer. So it's really worth looking into if you've got more space in your budget for setting even more aside. And if you've maxed out your retirement accounts, like if you're maxing out your 401k or any of these other retirement options and your IRAs, you can still invest more in just a standard brokerage account. Sometimes people forget about that account and think that they're investing all that they can, but you really can use a brokerage account to invest that extra, even more than you could put into your retirement accounts. And that money, yes, you pay tax on gains, but you have no restrictions to when you pull that money out. So that's a great account to have even before retirement. I encourage everyone to have a brokerage account to invest for your pre-retirement goals. Anything that you want to grow your money for that you want access to before the age of 60, you can just open up a brokerage account and invest in that. So I see that question from Jen. What is a brokerage account? Do we need a broker for this? You don't need a broker as an individual, but you need a firm to go to. So a brokerage account is just an account used to invest. That's not a retirement account. It's a taxable account, meaning you pay tax anytime you sell something with a gain, but the tax rates are lower. Like if you own something for more than 1 year, you pay what's called capital gain tax, which is either 0, 15, or 20% of the gain. So you're still making money. And then you don't have to worry about any tax in retirement. Like that's the tax. It's not income tax, it's capital gain tax. If you do sell it after you've owned it for less than a year, then you pay income tax rates on the gain. So if you have $1,000 gain and your income is in the 32% bracket, then you pay 32% of the $1,000. So 30, can't do that math right now. 30, is it 300 or 3,000? I don't know. Anyways, but if it's capital gain tax, you have that same $1,000 gain and you pay 15%. Most people fall in the 15% range. It's anyone that makes like 48,000 to like 400 and some thousand. Then you pay $15 on every 100 versus $32 on every $100 gain. So the broker question, that you just need to open it at any firm that you've heard of. Like I really like Fidelity for people that are managing their own accounts, because they have really low cost index funds. They allow you to buy stock slices, which is fractional shares of stocks. So if you wanted to buy into Amazon or Google, one of the higher priced stocks, you wouldn't have to buy the whole entire stock. You could just buy a sliver of it based on how much money you want to invest. And they also have a help desk. So I love being able to call in wherever my money is, to call if I have any questions at all. So some of the online firms like Robinhood, you hear of a lot, you have to chat, you have to send emails, and it becomes like, I don't like those firms just because of that. It's more of an obstacle to get some support if you need a quick call on something. So that's how you could open that brokerage account, and you could just buy index funds, you could buy stocks, you could do a combination of those. So I think we kind of, and then another thing, getting back to this chart that I'm sharing with you, if you're looking and you're like trying to do some research and look at what you're invested in currently, you could just enter those symbols. When you look at your retirement, like 401k, and you've got this list of things you're invested in, if you don't really know what is going on in there, just take the 4 or 5 letters that are in there and enter it into Google, or type out the name if they don't give you the shortened symbol, and type out the name of the fund. And you could start by typing in the S&P 500 to give you a baseline. But remember, the S&P 500 is all stocks. There's no bonds in it, so it's more of an aggressive investment. But when you do that, then you click on this More About button down here. And this is nice because you can then click Compare To, and you could enter the fund that you're in. So let's just enter, we'll just compare it to Facebook. Most of you all know Facebook, probably use Facebook often enough to like understand it, but let's look at this time frame now. So the blue line is the S&P 500. The yellow is Facebook. So we can see that in 2021, Facebook was doing much better than the S&P 500, but it's had a significant decline recently. And if you extend this further out over a 5-year time frame, wow, that drop is pretty significant, from all the way from up here to down here. Wow. And then if you click maximum, When you click max on a chart like this and you see this happen, it's only because Facebook wasn't around as long as the S&P 500. Looks like they went public in 2012. Wow, has it been that long already? Yeah, so that's why you see like a big discrepancy there, or deviation, whatever. So that's how you can compare. You could add, if you're in some funds that you're just like, what is going on? Why isn't this returning? You could enter it here and compare. And remember, if it's a bond fund, the return is going to be much less. You're not going to see the same results. But I love to look at this if you're considering any stocks, because you can get an idea of what to expect based on what they've done in the past. Apple's done significantly better over the last 5 years than the S&P 500. The Apple is inside the S&P 500, but the S&P 500 is diluted, right? Because it's 500 stocks versus just one. So that's why there's difference in returns, even though the S&P 500 does hold Apple. So let's see, is there anything else you all want to chat about or learn about right now?
Maggie, I actually got a private question. I think sometimes they come up in the back end by accident.
That's okay. Yeah.
Someone was asking about debt payoff. So if you have debt to pay off, are there recommendations you make in like creating a plan to knock that debt out so you can be more financially secure and start to plan for retirement?
Yes. Let's talk about that a little bit. So I like to use the avalanche method. Dave Ramsey, who's like a finance person that's really well known, he always talks about the snowball method. So there's two primary methods. Either is totally fine. So whichever is best for your personality, go with that. But basically I'll just tell you what I think you should do. You list out all of your debts. And actually I have a great calculator for you. I'm going to show you, and I have a financial workbook that if you're interested in, I do have it for sale. It's like $40 or something. So I can let you know about that. But I have this chart that I'm going to show you embedded in my financial workbook. Our debt repayment, I can't remember the name. Payment calculator. Let me see. So I might not be able to find the exact one that I want, but it might be similar to this. Basically, what you do is you enter all of your debts, how much you owe on them, your minimum payment, and your interest rate. Yeah, it's very similar to this chart. So I think you could use something just like this to help you figure out how to prioritize your debt. I like to pay off debt that's the highest interest rate first because you save the most money over time. Sometimes people like to pay off the lowest balance first and then take that amount and roll it into the other and that's the snowball method. The avalanche method is just paying the highest interest rate first. Just focus on that, and what you would do is list everything out, pay the minimums on everything except the one with the highest interest rate. That one, any surplus that you have, you roll it into that high interest rate debt until it's paid off. Then once that's paid off, you take that whole amount, the surplus plus the minimum that you were paying, and then roll it into the next one. And then you keep on doing that. And when you run your numbers in a calculator like this, it'll give you the exact date you'll be out of debt and what extra payments look like. If you could pay an extra $100 per month, what that looks like. And it should show you how much interest you pay on over time. So you can really see how much of the interest is going towards or how much of your money is going towards interest. And that was really motivational and eye-opening, because you know that money could be going towards building your wealth if you just get that paid off a little quicker. So those numbers are really important to enter. And I did mention my spreadsheet that I have. Like, I have a full financial workbook that helps you with tracking your expenses and like seeing everything in one spot. But I do have it included in my online investing course, which I mentioned in the beginning. I do have a course that teaches you all the basics, like helping you really understand what the investment options are, how to calculate fees, how to create your own portfolio, how to split up your budget between retirement and pre-retirement and all of that. But right now, so that opens up next week. Right now, I have a free 3-part workshop that you can sign up for. Gina, did I give you the link for that yet?
No, I don't have that link yet. If you want to drop that in.
Yeah, so this is going on right now. I already have 730 some people going through it, which is awesome. You can consume it on your own time. It's not a live webinar or anything. It's a video series. It's a 3-part series that's emailed out to you. So you'll get, so we're on day 2 today. You'll get an email for both the video from yesterday and the video from today as well. And then tomorrow, a 3rd video goes out. And basically, yesterday's video took you through, or takes you through calculating how much you need to save. It's kind of similar to what we did today. I also share my investment portfolio, my husband and I, so you can see how we're invested and how we've grown our money. And our portfolios right now are about 700,000 that we've accumulated, and about 50% of that is purely from market returns. So it just is mind blowing. And that's why it doesn't have to take as long as the calculators say. It's all dependent on the stock market returns. The last 5 and 6 years that we've been invested, the market's done phenomenal. So it's not anything special we did. We just got invested, and we invested as much as we could, and we rode the wave. So that's that opportunity, right? Just get in, do what you can, even if it's not a lot, and then add to it as you can. And just to wrap up that part, this video, that was yesterday's video, but today's is a 20-minute video, and it really kind of puts that piece together with choosing your investments, how to research stocks and funds. And then tomorrow's is a blueprint for putting everything together. So it's a really great 3-part training that you can grab for free right now. I do have an early bird pricing that I'm opening up tomorrow and over the weekend for the course. The course is going to be $397 for the weekend, and then just increased $100 for next week. So if you have any interest at all, definitely take a look at that. I would love to have more people in there and just help more people get started with this. There's going to be live calls and all of that stuff. So let me see there, the chat. Okay, how can we catch up on yesterday's video if we sign up today? It's going to be emailed out to you. The email goes out right when you sign up, and it'll have yesterday's and today's there.
Did anybody want to come off mute and ask any questions before we wrap up? We have just a couple of minutes left.
Don't be shy. I'm here for you.
I don't really have a question, but
Yeah.
I'll probably try to connect with you later. I just want to thank you for the story that you shared, the anecdote about your mom, because it's very relatable. And for me, I'm not a first generation. I moved to the United States myself.
Okay.
And there's so many challenges that immigrants have, or people who just don't have that background of wealth and investment, because that whole Wall Street aura can be very intimidating, or just different for women, because it's a male dominated field, money. And so I think really what you're doing is something that's really empowering for women. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. And also the fact that you recognize that not everyone is coming from money into this arrangement. And the reality is that many people are living paycheck to paycheck, because that is just the reality of the existence of many people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It is true. It is true. Most people, I think there's a statistic that's like most people don't have enough to cover a $400 emergency on hand. And so it just shows you there's a lot of need for it. And investing is, you're able to invest even if you don't have this large amount of money. So I just want, and I think getting started, even if it's just a little bit, it kind of lights that fire in you to do more and more as you're more able to. So
Maggie, that's the next question, is actually what is a good amount of money to start with if you're just starting an investment portfolio?
okay, so I would say have your high interest. Once you've got your high interest debt paid off, once you've got an emergency fund saved, so 3 to 6 months, depending on your job situation and your job security and all of that, then you can start with any extra that you have. If it's $100 just to open your account, it doesn't even have to be 100, but let's just say you start with $100 and you buy one S&P 500 index fund from Fidelity. Or if you want to start with $1,000, you can literally, these firms are making it so much easier for the beginner to get started. But I like to split things up, and I go over this in my training. I like to think of an 80-20 rule when it comes to investing, 80% in index funds. And I just like to use 3 to keep it simple: a large cap, a small cap, and an international. And then I like to add 20% in individual stocks, because I like that opportunity for that concentrated growth like we saw with Apple. But I also don't want to take so much risk that I put myself at risk of large losses like we saw with Facebook, right? If you put too much money into a couple individual stocks, you have that exposure to large losses. So that's where I really like the large portion, if not 100% in index funds, because it's much more stable. Even though it does move a lot, it's not going to move as drastically as an individual stock would move. But I like to do 80% in funds and then just a few stocks. I think my husband and I own probably 6 or 7 now, and that's it. But we have 20% of that 700 in stocks. So it's a large dollar amount, but percentage wise, it's about 20%. But I mean, I got started with $5,000 and I share that in one of my YouTube videos. And when I met my husband, he wasn't investing at all except in his 401k. But he had about $80,000, 60 or something like that, in cash, not investing. He didn't know anything about it. So I felt happy to be the female in the room that knew about it and to teach my husband. But I got him on board and got him invested. And we share our story there on YouTube as well. I quiz my husband and we talk about that stuff too. So, but it's been fun. So. I would love to see you guys in my training. I mean, I'm not going to visually see you, but like, I'd love to have you there. And then I'm on Instagram at Money with Maggie. I'm also on Facebook, Money with Maggie. And so feel free to message me. And if you have any questions, if you think of anything after this call, I am available.
Maggie, thank you so much. I mean, we're right up at the hour, and this was just, a wealth of information, really, really great things. And we really appreciate you sharing your personal story and information with us. And it also just gives, it's really eye-opening to see what you started with and where you're at, and how much potential there is for all of us, especially when we're starting a little bit later. So thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. And do reach out to Maggie. Check out her YouTube channel. It's great. I follow Maggie on Instagram, so I'm always watching her reels and her great videos that pop up with snippets of information that are super helpful. And I will also send out a follow-up message with these links. And thank you again, Maggie. This was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies. I just dropped my Instagram handle in there. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you all being here and being excited about planning for your retirement and working to gather more wealth on your side. When more people have more money that they could do more good for themselves and for others. So remember that. It's good to attract wealth, gain some wealth, and use it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Okay, bye.